Have you ever scrolled through social media or, searched online and just felt something was a bit off?
Hmm.
Like the content didn't quite land right, or interactions felt, I don't know, hollow, even when your feeds were just overflowing.
Yeah, that feeling. It's surprisingly common.
Right. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're absolutely not alone. This unsettling feeling is actually at the heart of something called the dead internet theory.
That's the one.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into the sources you've shared with us to really unpack this idea.
And importantly, not necessarily as a literal conspiracy theory that the internet's, actually dead.
Exactly. More like a powerful metaphor.
Hmm.
And maybe even a diagnostic tool for a very real shift that's happening online, a shift you can actually measure.
Quantifiable changes, yeah.
So our mission here really is to cut through the noise
Hmm.
and pull out the key insights from the material you sent over.
The important stuff
Right. So you can really get a handle on, what's actually transforming our digital world.
and what it means for you day to day.
Yeah. Well, look at where this theory even came from. Some surprising data that seems to back up the observations and, well, the bigger implications for culture, how we think, our future.
It's got layers.
It really does. Okay, so to pull back the curtain on this whole dead internet idea, where do we even start? Where did it come from?
It's fascinating, isn't it, how a concept that kind of bubbles up from the fringes of the internet can actually capture such a widespread feeling.
Totally.
And this dead internet theory, or DIT, it really does give us a lens, maybe a critical one, to see how the digital world is changing, from that vibrant, messy human place it felt like,
Yeah.
to something that often feels, well, manufactured.
Manufactured is a great word for it. And the origins are pretty interesting. It didn't just appear overnight.
Yeah.
Digging into this, the sources point to roots in places like 4chan, WizardChan,
Yeah.
anonymous forums,
Yeah,
basically.
that's right. The usual suspects for internet subculture around 2019, 2021, those kinds of dates.
But it really seemed to crystallize, didn't it, with that specific post in 2021.
Ah, yes, the illuminative post. That's the one people point to.
On Agora Road's Macintosh Cafe forum, of all places.
Yeah, and the title was pretty blunt. Dead Internet Theory. Most of the internet is fake. That really brought the different threads together.
And then it jumped. It went mainstream, or at least more mainstream.
Absolutely. Articles like the one in The Atlantic, maybe you missed it, but the internet died 5 years ago. That kind of coverage definitely gave it legs.
It took it from niche internet weirdness to something people were actually talking about.
Exactly. It legitimized the observations, even if people were skeptical about the grander claims.
Okay, so let's talk about that distinction. Because what I found really compelling in the sources is how the theory kind of rests on two pillars. One is stuff you can actually see and feel online,
Observable reality.
and the other is, well, it's a much bigger claim. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. So the DIT's power, I think, comes from how it connects these two parts. What the originators call the setup and the thesis.
Okay.
The setup is the stuff we all experience, the tangible trends. Like, you notice human activity seems quieter, right?
Yeah.
Displaced by bots, AI content, those algorithmic feeds that decide what you see.
Right, like the AI slop we hear about.
Exactly. That low quality, sometimes just bizarre content flooding social media,
Mm.
or even link rot. You click a link from an old article and it's just gone.
Yeah, the 404 error, the internet feeling like a ghost town sometimes, or like a movie set. A Potemkin village, as one source called it.
That's a great analogy. It's that feeling the content isn't really for humans anymore. It's optimized for algorithms to talk to other algorithms.
Okay, so that's the setup, things we can actually point to and say, yeah, I've seen that.
Hmm.
So what's the thesis part then? Where does it get, conspiratorial?
Well, the thesis takes that observable setup and builds on it. It proposes that this isn't just happening randomly, like it's not just market forces or tech evolution.
Mm-hmm.
The claim is that it's actually a deliberate, coordinated effort by powerful groups, maybe the government, big corporations, you know the drill,
To do what?
to use bots and AI for mass manipulation,
Yeah.
social control. That original Illumina Pirate post framed it as, let me get this right, artificial intelligence-powered gaslighting of the entire world population.
Wow, okay. That's a big leap from my feed feels weird.
It is, but you can see how the setup, the real everyday weirdness,
Mm-hmm.
gives that grander thesis a kind of grounding. It makes the conspiracy feel more plausible because it starts from something you have experienced.
Right, taps into that unease. Something's wrong. Maybe this is why. Okay, so to understand this landscape better, we need to know the players. Who's in this cast of characters driving this shift?
Good question. It helps to break it down. First up, obviously bots.
The infamous bots.
Yeah, but it's important to differentiate, right? You've got good bots, like Google's crawlers,
Yeah.
indexing the web so search works. We need those. Yeah. But then you have the bad bots, spamming, scraping content, trying to take over accounts, spreading disinformation, influence bots.
The stuff that makes comment sections unusable sometimes.
Exactly. And what's interesting now, the sources highlight, is that AI tools have made it way easier for almost anyone to deploy simple bad bots. It's not just sophisticated state actors anymore.
So it's democratized bot creation in a bad way.
Pretty much. Okay. Second character, AI-generated content, or as you mentioned, AI slop.
Right. Define that for us again.
It's basically content made by generative AI, I think ChatGPT,
Yeah.
image generators with very little or sometimes zero human input. And often it's low quality, repetitive, nonsensical.
Like those bizarre images that go viral. I remember Shrimp Jesus and Chala Horse. Who makes that stuff? Or what makes it?
That's the thing. It's often not a who, but a what.
Yeah.
The AI learns to combine concepts that get high engagement online, like religious figures, animals, food,
Right.
whatever grabs attention. It doesn't need to make sense to a human.
Just needs to trigger the algorithm. Got it. Who's next?
The third key player, the algorithmic curators. These are the invisible systems running platforms like Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, the arbiters of what you see.
The ones deciding our reality, in a way.
In a very real way. And their main goal, let's be honest, isn't usually about fostering deep human connection.
It's about engagement, right? Keeping eyes on the screen.
Exactly. Maximize engagement to maximize ad revenue. And that incentive structure, well, it creates the perfect environment for bots and AI slop to thrive, because that kind of content is often very effective at gaming those engagement metrics.
So it feels like the internet isn't actually dead as in empty. It's almost the opposite.
Precisely. It's overrun, hyperactive even.
That term dead internet is really kind of a misnomer then, isn't it?
I think so. It's not empty. It's flooded with automated content, simulated interactions. The emptiness people feel is, I think, a lack of meaningful, authentic human stuff.
Like being in a Times Square full of animatronics instead of people.
That's a good way to put it. So maybe synthetic internet or undead internet is more accurate. It's a crisis of authenticity, not activity.
Okay, so while the big conspiracy part of the dead internet theory might lack hard proof,
Right, the thesis part.
the core observations, the setup, seem to be backed by actual evidence. It's not just a feeling.
No, it's measurable. The data paints a pretty clear picture.
Let's get into that data then. The evidence chamber, what's the signal? What tells us organic human engagement is declining?
The numbers are pretty stark. Organic reach, basically, how many of your own followers see your posts without you paying, has just plummeted.
Plummeted how much?
Okay, so Facebook, back in 2012, maybe 16% organic reach. Now it's estimated down to like 2-5%. Some reports say even lower, below 3%.
Wow, so only 2 or 3 people out of 100 who follow you might see your post?
Potentially, yeah.
Ah,
Instagram saw a big drop too, like 29% just between 2021 and 2022. And LinkedIn, marketers reporting drops over 90% sometimes. It's a massive shift.
and so it's basically become pay to play, even with your own audience.
That's the reality. It feels like a shift from connection platform to advertising platform, primarily.
And humans are reacting to this, right? The sources mention people moving elsewhere.
Exactly. As the big platforms get noisier and less rewarding for genuine interaction, people are migrating, moving to the cozy web.
Cozy web, like what?
Think Discord servers, Slack groups, private WhatsApp chats, email newsletters, smaller niche blogs, places where you can find more authentic, human-scale connection.
Okay, so humans are retreating to smaller circles, but what's filling the void on the main stage? That brings us to the noise, right? The boss.
Right, the proliferation of automated traffic. This is where the numbers get really eye-opening.
Get me with the stats.
Okay, cybersecurity firm Imperva puts out a report every year. Their 2024 one, looking at 2023 data, found bot traffic hit a record high. 49.6% of all internet traffic.
Almost half.
Almost half. Up 2% from the year before. And bad bots, the spammy malicious ones, were 32% of all traffic, human traffic, down to just 50.4%.
So basically, for every human online, there's roughly one bot browsing alongside them.
That's the ratio now. It's pretty wild.
And there was that example from inside YouTube, the inversion. That sounded crazy.
Oh yeah, that's a stark illustration. The story goes that fraudulent bot views became so common, so overwhelming, that the engineers worried their own detection algorithms might start flagging real human views as fake because they look different from the bot patterns.
Whoa, the system potentially losing touch with human reality because it's so saturated with fake data.
That's the danger. The bots start defining normalcy for the machine.
Okay, so declining human reach, rising bot traffic. What's the third piece?
The third piece is the flood, the exponential growth of AI-generated content.
Ah, the AI slop again, but at scale.
Exactly. When tools like ChatGPT became widely available in late 2022, it triggered what some call a Cambrian explosion of synthetic content.
How big an explosion are we talking?
One study, by CopyLeaks, found an 8,362% surge in AI content online between November 2022 and March 2024.
8,000%. That's incredible.
It is. And forecasts are even more dramatic.
Yeah.
Europol warns 90% of online content might be synthetic by 2026.
90% in just a couple of years.
That's their warning.
Yeah.
In some future studies institutes, they project 99, even 99.9% synthetic content dominating online between 2025 and 2030, especially if generative AI just keeps accelerating unchecked.
99%. It's hard to even imagine. That leads to that feedback loop problem, right? Model collapse.
Precisely. That's the really worrying long-term prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Future AI models learn by scraping the internet.
Right.
But if the internet is increasingly full of content made by previous AIs,
They start learning from themselves, eating their own tail, kind of.
exactly, it creates this degenerative loop. AI trained on the often bland, averaged-out output of other AIs produces even more homogenized generic stuff. It's like making photocopies of photocopies.
Quality just degrades.
It degrades, potentially catastrophically.
Yeah.
It's not just about boring content. It's an existential threat to how we generate and share knowledge. We risk trapping ourselves in this loop.
A death spiral for information quality, as one source put it. The internet stops being a library and becomes a hall of mirrors.
A shrinking hall of mirrors, potentially.
And these three trends, the declining organic reach, the bot swarm, the AI flood, they're not separate issues, are they?
Not at all. They're interconnected. They form a self-reinforcing cycle, what some call a doom loop.
How does that loop work?
Okay, so platforms suppress organic reach to push paid ads. That creates a vacuum, an engagement gap.
Which bots and AI content are really good at filling?
Right, they can game the algorithms efficiently, but the result is often AI slop, which degrades the user experience.
Pushing real humans away, maybe to that cozy web.
Exactly. And that human exodus makes the bot-to-human ratio even worse.
Accelerating the whole cycle, the death of the authentic internet feeds itself.
The system seems almost architected to produce this outcome, given the current incentives.
Wow. Okay, so this synthetic internet isn't just changing what we see online, it's changing how we see it, how we perceive reality itself.
That's a crucial point.
We used to talk about filter bubbles, but the sources suggest AI is creating something maybe more subtle, more pervasive.
Yeah, it goes beyond the classic filter bubble idea, which was about algorithms isolating you from opposing views, or echo chambers, where you're just surrounded by agreement. Some research actually questions how widespread those old models really were.
Okay, so what's different now with modern AI?
The sources point to something called the personalized bell curve.
Personalized bell curve, explain that.
So a standard AI, like a large language model trained on the whole internet, tends to give statistically average, middle-of-the-road responses, kind of a default bell curve of opinion.
Okay.
But as it interacts with you, learns your preferences, your biases, that bell curve subtly shifts. The AI starts framing its neutral or balanced answers to align slightly with your worldview.
Whoa. So if I lean left, the AI's objective answer might have a slight left tilt, and vice versa.
That's the idea. It's not presenting obviously biased information necessarily. It's subtly reframing the entire landscape around your existing beliefs, making its tailored perspective feel like the objective center.
That's much harder to detect than just seeing biased news sources. It's like an invisible echo chamber.
Exactly. It whispers its influence rather than shouting it. And this effect could be even stronger with AI companion chatbots, which are explicitly designed to be agreeable and build rapport.
Creating a reality tunnel that feels perfectly normal, perfectly balanced, just for you.
Right. And this personalization builds on biases already inherent in the AI.
It's not always intentional bias, though.
Not necessarily malicious intent, no. The sources identify three main types. Data bias. The AI learns from biased human data, reflecting societal prejudices,
Garbage in, garbage out.
basically. Then algorithmic bias.
Yeah.
The way the algorithm itself is designed might prioritize, say, sensational or extreme content because it gets more engagement. And finally, human bias. The conscious or unconscious biases of the developers, the data labelers, they can all seep into the system.
And these biases lead to homogenization. Is that the right word?
Yeah, that's a key outcome. Two kinds, really.
Yeah.
First, outcome homogenization. The AI might favor standard safe solutions and overlook diverse or creative ones,
Hmm.
like a biased hiring AI screening out good candidates because they don't fit a narrow historical profile.
Right. It optimizes for the average.
And second, content homogenization.
Yeah.
Generative AI naturally gravitates towards this statistically probable, the average, the cliche. It's great at remixing, but not so much at true originality.
Which leads to that bland, predictable content and fuels the model collapse death spiral again.
Exactly, it flattens creativity.
So, bottom line, AI optimizing for the average makes culture more boring, potentially society more unjust, by ignoring the edges where originality and progress happen.
That's the risk, yeah. A very real concern.
And we're not just passive victims here. Humans play a role in creating these reality tunnels too, right?
Absolutely, it's a co-creation. One big factor is cognitive offloading.
Meaning we let the AI do the thinking for us.
Essentially, yeah. When you rely on AI for quick answers, summaries, writing drafts, you're delegating critical thinking.
Yeah.
And the worry is, those mental muscles can atrophy. You become less skilled at analyzing, evaluating information yourself,
More likely to just accept the AI's output without question.
potentially. And platforms can exploit our psychology too, using things like artificial validation.
What's that, like fake likes?
Yeah, bots providing likes, shares, positive comment. It creates these powerful feedback loops, making you feel seen, popular,
And
validated.
it's hooked on the platform.
Exactly. Some sources even compare it to psychological manipulation techniques like love bombing, showering someone with positive reinforcement to create dependence.
Okay, this is all happening inside the internet's content layer, but you mentioned earlier it's connected to a bigger picture, the internet itself fracturing, the splinter net.
Right. It's crucial to understand how the dead internet phenomenon fits into that broader context of global internet fragmentation. They're related, but distinct.
How are they distinct?
Think of it like this. Dead internet is about vertical fragmentation, the degradation of the content layer, the authenticity layer. The internet gets filled with this synthetic soup, this layer of unreality,
Yeah.
but the underlying pipes, theoretically, could still be globally connected.
Okay, a vertical split between real and fake.
Yeah, whereas the splinter net is about horizontal fragmentation, the actual breaking apart of the internet's infrastructure and governance.
Driven by countries.
Mostly, yeah.
Huh?
National interests, China's Great Firewall is the classic example, but also data localization laws, different regulations, emerging techno-ideological blocks like the US-EU versus China-Russia approach to the internet.
So different internets for different regions.
Potentially. And it's not just governments. Commercial decisions, too, like a company offering an AI bot block could create walled gardens, these permission silos.
So how do these two things, the dead internet's vertical split and the splinter net's horizontal split, interact?
They reinforce each other in some dangerous ways. A fragmented splinter net makes it much easier for states to control the information ecosystem within their fragment.
Easier to create those national reality bubbles.
Exactly. We saw examples after Russia's invasion of Ukraine where TikTok reportedly restricted content inside Russia and amplified state narratives. Fragmentation enables that kind of control.
And it probably makes disinformation more profitable too. Easier to target captive audiences within a fragment.
That's another concern, yeah. Content farms, influence ops, they might thrive in those echo chambers.
And does fragmentation make it harder to solve the dead internet problems?
Exponentially harder. How do you get global cooperation on things like content provenance standards or ethical AI rules or fighting global botnets if the internet itself is fundamentally divided politically and technically?
Right, it fractures the problem and the potential solutions.
So, connecting the dots, a horizontally fragmented internet, splinternet, makes the vertical fragmentation of reality, dead internet, easier to manage and control locally. And a population already confused and distrustful from swimming in synthetic content might be less able to resist those fragmenting forces.
It's a feedback loop between the infrastructure and the content.
A potentially dangerous one.
Okay, stepping back then, the fallout from all this. This shift towards a synthetic, fragmented internet. It must have huge consequences beyond just, annoying bots.
Absolutely. The impacts are profound, reshaping culture, trust, even how we think.
What's the biggest hit, would you say?
I think the most immediate and maybe most damaging is the erosion of digital trust and authenticity.
Seeing isn't believing anymore.
Pretty much. deepfakes, manipulated media, they force you into this constant state of skepticism, which is exhausting, but also undermines the very idea of a shared reality we can agree on.
And just trusting interactions, knowing if you're talking to a person or a program.
That erodes too. It makes online communication feel treacherous, potentially isolating.
And there are real psychological harms, right? Like that example of cancer patients finding out supportive messages weren't from people.
Yeah, that's incredibly jarring. It feels like a violation of trust, replacing real empathy with a simulation. It breeds cynicism, maybe even despair about connection.
Beyond trust, what about creativity, culture, knowledge itself?
That's the next big area of concern. The sheer volume of AI content, optimized for averages and virality, threatens to just drown out original human creativity.
Making it harder for real artists, writers, musicians to get noticed, or even make a living.
That's the fear. How do you compete with infinite, free, instantly generated content, even if it's mediocre?
And we already talked about the death spiral of knowledge with model collapse.
Right. The risk that knowledge itself gets trapped in this degrading loop of AI remixing AI, the internet becoming less of a library, more of that hole of mirrors.
Reflecting an increasingly boring, distorted version of itself.
And in that scenario, our role changes, doesn't it? We shift from being active participants, creators, communicators.
To just passive consumers watching the machine talk to itself.
That's the trajectory some worry about.
And this whole dehumanized experience, it affects our thinking too, our ability to connect, our autonomy.
Yes, absolutely. The cognitive offloading we mentioned relying on AI could lead to an atrophy of critical thinking skills.
Hmm.
We might become less able to analyze, question, form independent judgments.
Making us more susceptible to manipulation.
Plausibly, yes. And the platforms themselves, optimized for engagement, not necessarily deep connection, can foster social isolation. You're scrolling through endless content, maybe getting fake validation from bots.
But not actually connecting with people. One source said users might become content with experiencing an internet massively filled with content without the need to interact with other people.
That's a chilling thought, isn't it? Passively consuming alongside millions of others, but fundamentally alone.
And all this together, the manipulation, the eroding critical thinking, it strikes at autonomy, doesn't it? Our ability to make informed choices.
It really does. If your perception is subtly shaped by invisible echo chambers, and your ability to critically evaluate is weakened, how capable are you of making truly independent decisions? It's a potential threat to democratic society itself.
So the question isn't just, is the internet dying, but maybe, is it being turned into a tool for managing us? Keeping us passive, consuming, predictable.
Like a giant Skinner box, as some have speculated. Is the goal human flourishing or just optimized engagement metrics?
It raises fundamental questions about what we want our digital spaces for.
And highlights that the stakes are incredibly high. It's about preserving a shared reality.
Okay, this diagnosis sounds pretty bleak. But the sources also talk about pathways forward, right? It's not necessarily a done deal.
Definitely not. The future isn't written yet. There are real efforts underway. Responses being developed across technology, policy, and even culture.
Let's break those down. What about technological interventions? Can we code our way out of this? Partly?
There are tools being built. Advanced bot detection is one area. It's way beyond just those annoying CUPT-CHA tests now.
How does it work?
It uses sophisticated techniques, analyzing user behavior, how you move your mouse, how you type, device fingerprinting, checking the unique characteristics of your device, IP reputation databases, and a lot of machine learning to spot new, evolving bot patterns. It's a constant arms race.
A digital cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Okay, what else on the tech side?
A really important one is content provenance, the C2PA standard.
C2PA, you mentioned it briefly, like a nutrition label for digital stuff.
Exactly. It's an open standard backed by big players, Adobe, Microsoft, BBC, others. It embeds secure metadata into a file right when it's created, like a photo, video, or document.
And that metadata shows.
It shows where the file came from, who created it, and critically, any edits made along the way. It's all cryptographically signed, so it's tamper-proof. Give you a verifiable history or provenance.
So it tells you if an image is genuinely from Reuters or if it's been altered.
Precisely. It doesn't tell you if the content is true, but it tells you if it's authentic to its claimed source and history. A huge step for rebuilding trust.
Okay, that sounds promising. What about tackling model collapse? Keeping AI training data clean?
That's where ideas like knowledge as a service, or CAUS, come in.
Cause.
Instead of just scraping the increasingly messy public web, CAUS envisions creating curated, high-quality data sets. Human experts would contribute, validate, and maintain domain-specific knowledge.
Like building verified libraries for AI to learn from.
Sort of, yeah. A sustainable source of authentic, human-vetted knowledge to prevent that degenerative feedback loop and keep AI learning grounded in reality.
Tech solutions are one piece, but they probably need policy and governance to back them up.
Absolutely. Technology alone won't cut it. We need smarter rules. One big area is liability and accountability.
Holding AI companies responsible.
Yes. There's a push for laws that make developers and platforms accountable for harms caused by their AI, especially if they were negligent. Think rules similar to know your customer in finance, but for AI, making sure tools aren't easily misused for large-scale fraud or manipulation.
Like the proposed No Fakes Act in the US.
Exactly. Things like that, establishing standards of care.
What else on the policy front?
Transparency and labeling are key. Regulations like the EU's AI Act are starting to mandate clear labels for AI-generated content and deepfakes.
So you know when you're interacting with AI or seeing synthetic media.
Right. Empowering users with that basic information is crucial.
And maybe rules with the platforms themselves, their algorithms?
Yeah, promoting human-centric design. That could mean regulations demanding more algorithmic transparency, more accountability for platform impacts, and maybe exploring different business models that don't rely solely on maximizing engagement at any cost, reducing the incentive for all the bots and slop in the first place.
That feels like a fundamental shift needed. Okay, so tech and policy. What about us, the users? Is there a role for a human renaissance?
Definitely. Ultimately, user behavior and cultural shifts are maybe the most powerful force. First and foremost, digital literacy and critical thinking.
Learning how to navigate this new world.
Exactly. It's not a niche skill anymore. It's essential. We need education, teaching everyone how to evaluate sources, spot AI content, verify claims, using simple strategies like SIFT-stop, investigate the source, find better coverage, trace claims back to the origin,
Becoming more critical consumers of information.
and creators too. Then there's the retreat to the cozy web we talked about.
People voting with their feet, basically.
It's a user-driven shift. People actively seeking out smaller, private, more authentic communities on Discord, newsletters, niche forums. It shows a demand for human-scale interaction.
A rejection of the noisy synthetic public square.
And finally, potentially, a cultural shift towards valuing the real.
A backlash against the fakeness.
Maybe, as the digital world gets more synthetic, we might see a renewed appreciation for things that are verifiably human, authentic, maybe more value placed on in-person experiences, on handcrafted goods, on art or music, where you can feel the human creator's touch, imperfections, and all.
Interesting. The flaws become a feature, a sign of authenticity.
Could be a way to differentiate from the artificial polish.
What stands out to you most about these potential solutions? It feels like we need all of them working together.
That's exactly it. There's no single silver bullet here. It has to be a multi-layered approach. Tech, policy, education, individual choices, cultural shifts, all reinforcing each other.
It's a big challenge, clearly.
A massive one. But the fact that these solutions are being actively discussed, developed, and sometimes implemented, that offers real hope, I think.
Okay, so just to wrap up then, we've dug into this dead internet theory, not really as a literal conspiracy, but more as a useful, maybe even crucial way to understand how the internet is changing.
A lens on its metamorphosis.
Yeah. We've seen how that feeling of something being off connects to real trends. Human interaction declining, bots swarming, AI content flooding everything,
Right.
creating this synthetic digital world.
With real impacts on trust, creativity, even our own thinking.
But the key takeaway, perhaps, is that the internet isn't really dead. It's changing profoundly, yes, but the future isn't set in stone.
No, it's not predetermined.
It really seems like it will depend on conscious choices. From technologists building the tools, policymakers setting the rules.
And critically, from all of us as users.
Right. How you navigate this space, what you choose to create, how you demand authenticity online. The challenge seems to be guiding this massive change towards a future that actually helps humans flourish.
Instead of just simulating it.
Exactly. So the final thought to leave you with is, what kind of internet do you want to live in? And maybe more importantly, what part will you play in building it?